Hi guys, it's Beth here from West London English School. Today we are going to have a look at listening part B of the exam. So I'm going to take you through a full paper of part B, and we'll look at some little tips and strategies to help you. We will do some looking at the questions, the language within the questions, and we will also then look at the answers going through the transcript. You will need a pen and paper for this lesson, so if you don't have that, go and get those now. So question 1. Now here we can see the context statement. In listening part B, there is a context statement for each question. You hear a patient talking to a dental receptionist. Now, what does this tell us? Well, we know that the patient is at the dentist, but the patient is not with a dentist. The patient is probably in reception. There might be other people in the room. We're probably not going to hear too much technical language because the patient is talking to a receptionist rather than someone who is a dentist or an assistant dentist or something like that. It's really important in the exam that you read the context statement, especially the people. So the patient is talking to the dental receptionist. And in OET Part B, there are different kinds of questions. In this case, we have a direct question, how does he feel? And here is another option. This is a different question, but here we've got a sentence completion. So this is just another type of question that you might get in Part B. But we're looking at this, which is a direct question. And if we have a look at the answer options, we really need to make sure that we read this carefully. So, in the question, we've got this word feel, and we can see the feelings highlighted here: worried, disappointed, nervous. Now, when you are listening, you need to be thinking about any words, synonyms that you might hear that mean the same as the options. Because in Part B, or in the listening in general, the person speaking is not going to repeat the same words. For example, the patient will not say to the dental receptionist, "Yes, I am worried that I might have damaged a filling." That's not going to happen. So instead of worried, the patient might say concerned, troubled, agitated, stressed. So it is important when you are reading the question, first of all, read that context statement, then look at the question, and then when you're looking at the answers, try and think of some kind of language that the person might use when you are listening. What kind of things will they say if this is the answer? And it's not just about the feelings. You know, the patient might sound worried, but the patient might not be worried that he has damaged a filling. It might be that he is worried about seeing the dentist because he's scared of the dentist. So you've got to make sure that you read all of the answer carefully. So here we've got worried that he's damaged a filling, disappointed that he can't be seen immediately. Again, think of these synonyms. So for immediately, he might say as soon as possible, or now, or today. He might say the dentist isn't available today but can see you tomorrow. And then we have nervous, about being treated by a different dentist. Okay. Now in OET, they do put in distractors, and that means that you might hear the person talking about that the dentist can't see the patient immediately, or the receptionist might say that the treatment today will be by a different dentist. But you have to make sure that you associate the feeling, for example, disappointed, with the rest of it. So maybe the dentist can't be seen immediately, but the patient might say, okay, don't worry, that's fine. And that means that the patient isn't disappointed that he can't be seen immediately. Now we are going to have a listen. So listen carefully and choose the correct answer.
Hi, I'd like an urgent appointment, please.
Let's see, who's your usual dentist?
Mr. Garcia?
You say it's urgent. Are you in pain?
Yeah, it's the tooth Mr. Garcia filled last week.
Well, he's away today, I'm afraid, but there's a free slot this afternoon with his colleague, Mrs. Brown.
Well, that'd be okay, but are you saying Mr. Garcia could fit me in tomorrow?
That's right, we'd get you in first thing. Can you wait?
Well, I'm not chewing on that side and I'm taking paracetamol, which is helping. The pain started when I was eating a steak, so I'm frightened I might have upset Mr. Garcia's work. It makes sense for him to check it out.
OK, we'll book you in for tomorrow morning at 10.
Okay. I hope you've chosen your answer. In the exam, you need to choose your answer quite quickly because it will move on to the next answer very quickly. So we've got the transcript here. And we can see down at the bottom this highlighted line, so I'm frightened I might have upset Mr. Garcia's work. Now, we know that worried and frightened could mean a similar thing. And also here we've got damaged a filling, and this could be upset Mr. Garcia's work. Now, Mr. Garcia is the dentist, and his work could be the filling that Mr. Garcia has done. So this is our answer because of this line here. Now, like I said before, there are distractors, so let's have a look at those. We have this line, but are you saying Mr. Garcia could fit me in tomorrow? So we know that it's true that the patient can't be seen immediately. But is the patient disappointed about that? No. There's nothing here, nothing was said about the patient saying, oh no, that's a shame, or anything like that. He didn't say that he was disappointed. And let's look at the other option. So it is true that the patient can be seen or may be treated today by a different dentist. We have this line here, he's away today, I'm afraid, but there's a free slot this afternoon with his colleague, Mrs. Brown. However, is the patient nervous about this? Well, no, because this line here highlighted, that would be okay. So the patient is saying, it's okay for me to be seen by Mrs. Brown, but I would be happy also to see Mr. Garcia tomorrow. So this can't be our answer either. Let's have a look at question 2. We're going to analyse it in a similar way to the other question. And so just have a read of this now. I'll give you 10 seconds to read it. So we have our context statement. You hear part of a presentation to nursing staff about an extension to visiting hours. Now, this means that probably one person, one speaker, is talking to a group of nurses, and we know what they're talking about. It is an extension to visiting hours. Again, we have a direct question, similar to the first one, and we need to focus on our answer options. So we have detailing the benefits of the planned change. This means that the speaker would be speaking in a lot of detail, reassuring them that their workload won't increase. So for reassuring, we might hear language like, I understand that you are worried that you might have more work than usual. Like, I understand, or I know that you are thinking this. And then we've also got explaining. And again, it's not just about those first words. We've got to look at the extra detail of the answers. So detailing the benefits of the planned change. So the detail of the benefits, the advantages, not the disadvantages. Reassuring them that their workload won't increase. So they might say something like, I understand that you're worried that you might have more work than usual, but I can assure you that this isn't the case. And then we've got explaining steps they should take to avoid problems. So we would hear something about avoiding problems or problems that might arise with this new extension to visiting hours. So let's have a listen.
Now, you'll have received the survey asking your opinion about extending visiting hours, and doubtless you've got your own ideas about the possible impact on your work. You're probably aware of the evidence pointing to the positive effects on patient recovery rates of increased contact with loved ones. This isn't in question, but of course things must be managed properly. I've heard concerns about how busy everyone is, that you've got enough on your plates without having to worry about extra demands from visitors. Well, we've carefully planned things to prevent you being overrun with queries, interruptions and so on. Visitors will be given a list of do's and don'ts outlining what's expected of them. Meanwhile, managers will be monitoring things carefully to make sure routines aren't disrupted at all.
Okay. So here we have the transcript. If we look at the first answer detailing the benefits of the planned change. Now, if we read this line that's highlighted, it says, you're probably aware of the evidence pointing to the positive effects. Now, if we say something like, you're probably aware, this would mean that the speaker doesn't think they need to detail the benefits because the staff are already aware of the evidence of the positive effects. And again, we've got those synonyms, benefits and positive effects. So this cannot be the answer. If we look at this last section, so concerns about how busy everyone is, it talks about you've got enough to do without having to worry about extra demands. And then she says, we've carefully planned things to prevent you being overrun. So we have some reassuring language here with concerns and worry. And the reassuring comes where they say, we've carefully planned things to prevent you from having these problems, having these concerns and worries. And then we've got to find about the workload won't increase. We've got this idiomatic phrase, enough on your plates, which means you already have enough to do. And where it says extra demands from visitors, which would of course be a higher workload. And so B is our answer here. Let's have a look at question 3. We're not going to go over this in detail this time. You're just going to have the 10 seconds to read through the context statements, the question and the answers, and then have a go at answering it yourself.
It looks like Mrs. Jones is still a bit groggy after her thyroidectomy. Will she be going up to the ward soon?
Yes, I'm going to call a porter. She should be going up in 15 minutes.
Okay. I've added some extra post-op pathology orders. She may have problems with the drop in her calcium. Her thyroid was just huge. We didn't see all 4 parathyroid glands, and we need to check that they haven't been affected by the procedure. She seems okay, but I want her calcium level checked twice a day. She needs to be monitored for any breathing problems, muscle cramping and numbness, and for tingling in her fingers.
Okay, I'll make sure a report to watch out for hypercalcemia is passed on.
Okay, if you need me, call me.
Okay, so if we analyse the question, what is the surgeon concerned about? So, like we had that language before, we want to be listening for words like worried or nervous or frightened. And the surgeon says Mrs. Jones is still a bit groggy after her thyroidectomy. Now, the word groggy means sleepy, not quite awake, or in that kind of state between being asleep and being awake. Imagine that you've had anaesthetic, and just as you're coming out of the anaesthetic, you're kind of waking up, but this kind of this feeling in the middle of coming out of it and being fully awake is groggy. Okay, so after a thyroidectomy, which we know is an operation, so we can match an operation here with post-operative, because post means after the operation, and here we've got after her thyroidectomy. And if we look at the detail here, we can see, for example, where it says the parathyroid glands, it talks about checking the calcium level, and she needs monitoring for breathing problems, muscle cramping, etc. And these are all side effects from the operation. We know that there were possibly a couple of issues with the operation where the surgeon has said her thyroid was just huge. We didn't see all 4 parathyroid glands. Okay. So B is our answer here. Okay, questions 4, 5 and 6. I am going to just do the same. We're not going to analyse the questions or the answers. I just want you to read through the question and try and get the right answer. Here we go.
Today we're going to start with Ryan. He's 2 weeks post-surgery for a torn rotator cuff. He also had a spur on his acromion process removed. This is his first time in rehab post-surgery, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay, so today we're going to begin utilizing high-frequency vibration to break up the scar tissue forming in his left shoulder joint following the surgery. We're going to do each of his treatments that way, so you'll see a progression over time, how we get him back to a point where he's able to live his normal life. Movement's the key to rehabilitation, and this treatment resonates with the nerves too, so it should eventually help them heal quicker and reduce his discomfort.
Okay, I hope that you have got your answer.
If you look at the risks of elective surgery, they're really very low compared to emergencies. Clearly, then, we can make the biggest difference in reducing risk and improving outcomes in emergency surgery. Our mortality outcomes here are actually below average. We're at 8% compared to around 13% nationally. The emergency patients I handle tend to be older, so they're at higher risk. And when they come in, we haven't got long to prepare them in order to reduce any risks, maybe an hour or 2. In terms of patient safety, every minute, every half hour we can use to get them ready counts. That's because the patients we're thinking about are prone to developing post-operative complications, given that they have a range of associated heart, kidney, and lung problems.
Okay, and let's have a look at question 6.
How are you feeling, Mr. Shaw?
Oh, exhausted. But the painkillers must be working. I can't feel my knee as you predicted.
You're bound to feel weary after an operation. It went well, though. We cleaned out loose cartilage from the joint. You can go home now.
Oh, thanks. I had an arthroscopy on the other knee several years ago, so I know what it's like. The idea that it gets done in less than a day is still pretty mind-boggling, though.
You'll need crutches for 2 weeks, but you should be walking okay within a month.
Good.
Give it 4 months before you put any serious impact on it, though.
4 months. After my last stop, I started running again within a month. Thinking about it, though, I guess I paid for it. That knee had a lot of niggles for months afterwards.
Yeah, if your body's hurting, it's telling you something.
Okay.
Okay, let's go over the answers to 4, 5, and 6. So here we've got the question for question 4. So in our context statement, we have the chiropractor briefing a colleague. So 2 professionals talking to each other, and they are discussing a patient, the patient called Ryan. And we're listening for the overall aim of the treatment plan. And this means that this is probably going to be a gist question. We're listening for what is the general aim of the treatment plan. So looking at the transcript, we've got this highlighted line. We're going to begin utilizing high-frequency vibration to break up the scar tissue forming in his left shoulder joint following the surgery. Now, because this is the operation that we are talking about, or after his operation, this is what we're going to do. So as it says, following the surgery, we can see here the scar tissue forming in his left shoulder. So the surgery has left Ryan with scar tissue. And because we want to use high frequency vibration to break this up, this would mean that C is our answer, because the treatment is the high frequency vibration. And again, it says here resonates with the nerves too, so it should eventually help them heal quicker. So we are treating the side effects of an operation. If we look at the other answers where it says improving pain relief, there is nothing here that really talks about his pain and trying to improve his pain relief. And if it is mentioned, it's definitely not as the overall aim of the plan. And then with B, restoring feelings in his arm. Again, really here there's not much that's going to tell us about this, and it's definitely not the overall aim of the treatment plan, so this can't be our answer. Let's look at number 5. So we have our context statement, a bit similar to question 2, I think it was. A surgeon is talking to some medical students. And we want to look for the surgeon emphasizing something. Now, emphasizing means the biggest, the most important thing. What is he emphasizing? What point is he making in the strongest way? Now, when you are in the exam, you might want to highlight some parts of the answer just to make sure that you're getting the most important parts and you know what you need to listen for. And here in each answer, A, B, and C, we've got the word risk. Now we know from the context statement that the surgeon is talking about patient risk in emergency surgery. But we've got to think about, well, what is he saying about risk? So in A, it's about minimizing risk. In B, it's about surgery that carries risk. And in C, it's the patients which are at high risk. And those patients require extra recovery time. Again, make sure that you read the whole answer. Just because you see something or you hear something doesn't necessarily mean that that's the answer. All parts of the answer, so for example with A, prompt preparation and minimizing patient risk, both of those need to be mentioned or discussed in the listening. And here we have our transcript. Just want to focus on this sentence here. So in terms of patient safety, every minute, every half hour we can use to get them ready counts. So here, if we go back, we've got this whole section about emergency patients and preparing them. It says we haven't got long to prepare them. And then we've got here, again, like we said, every minute, every half hour counts. And this we can say is to do with prompt preparation. So that other part of A, minimizing patient risk, is about here, we haven't got long to prepare them in order to reduce any risks. And that means that actually both parts of answer A are mentioned here. So A is our answer. Let's look at 6. So we've got the surgeon talking to a patient who's just had a knee operation, so post-operative. And we've got a sentence completion activity here. Now we are looking for, what do the man's comments reveal? And again, we've got to highlight if it's feelings or something like that. Here we've got determined, impressed, surprised. So we need to be listening for any similar language that relates to these feelings. And again, looking at the second part of the sentence, he's determined to start doing sport quickly. He's impressed with the little time he spent in hospital. Or he's surprised that he'll be pain-free so quickly. So let's have a look for that in the transcript. So if we start with option A, determined to start doing sport as quickly as possible. Now, it does mention doing sport, running, and as quickly as possible within a month. But is he determined? He says, thinking about it though, I guess I paid for it. Which means that after his last operation, he did start running again, but he paid for it. That means that there was pain or there were some kind of problems, and he actually shouldn't have started running so quickly. So this can't be our answer. If we look at C, surprised that he'll be relatively pain-free so soon, he does talk about pain-free or painkillers, and he says, I can't feel my knee as you predicted. But is he surprised? No, he's not surprised, because we've got this language, as you predicted. So he's not surprised because the surgeon already predicted that he wouldn't be able to feel his knee. And so our answer must be B, impressed by how little time he spent in the hospital. And he says here, the idea that it gets done in less than a day is pretty mind-boggling. Now, mind-boggling is a great adjective, and it basically means something amazing, something astounding. It confuses your mind because it's so great. So another way of saying impressed. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the vocabulary that we've had in this task B. I'm just going to give you maybe 5 minutes, maybe a bit less, to read through these sentences and see if you can remember from the listening what the words are that go in the gap. Okay, so number 2, any ideas? Frightened is what they said. So frightened in this case is meaning the same kind of thing as anxious, worried. Number 3. Yeah, enough on your plates. So if you have enough on your plate, it's not really about food, it's saying that you are very busy. Number 4, groggy. I love this word. So meaning the same as tired or hazy, cloudy. Remember, groggy is that kind of state where you are waking up and you're almost in the middle of being asleep and being awake. Okay, so utilizing is very similar to using. And scar tissue forming in his left shoulder is to do with making. Prompt. This is another good word as well. So prompt preparation means quick. We can also use this as an adverb, promptly, which is the same as quickly. And finally, mind-boggling. So again, astonishing, impressive, confusing, like we said before. Okay, so for part B, it is important that you first of all read the context statement carefully, as this is going to give you a general idea of what the listening is going to be about. It focuses your attention on who is speaking and where the people are, or where the person is. Underline words in the answer options, and remember, don't just underline one part. You've got to make sure that you've read the whole answer. Just because the word worried is there, and maybe the patient is worried, it doesn't mean that they're worried about the certain thing that is in the answer option. So read these answer options very, very carefully. Don't lose sight of the question. Always focus on what you actually need to answer, and for that again you can do some underlining just to focus your attention while listening. Listen to the whole audio. Now, because of the distractors, sometimes you might hear a word or a phrase and think, yes, I have the answer, and then you lose focus. But that doesn't necessarily mean, just because you've heard something, it doesn't mean that's the answer. So do make sure you listen to the whole audio. It could be that the answer is actually mentioned right at the very end. So do please listen to all of it. And listen to both speakers, of course. The reactions that you get from someone else is very important. Be aware of synonymous language. So I know that there isn't much time to read the question, but synonyms are so important in really the whole of the OET listening exam. If you see the word worried, listen out for concerned or anxious or frightened or nervous. And again, don't stop listening. This is the same as really listen to the whole audio. I hope that you have enjoyed this lesson and found it interesting. Make sure that you check out our other videos on YouTube to help you with the other parts of the test. We've got some reading papers on there, other parts of the listening, parts A and C. So yeah, check it out. We also have our online courses. which you can access by going to our website, which is www.wles.net. On there, you can find lots of information on the different types of courses that we have. You can also join our face-to-face courses if you are in London. You can always come in, visit us, say hello, ask us any questions, and we'll be happy to help.